Welcome back. Now, if there was one region everyone had expected the Labour Party to probably clear just during the governorship election now, that region would be the Southeast region. But it just didn't play out that way. Of course, the Labour Party tried, but at the end of the day, it was only able to get just one state. And that state, it was a tough fight, I must tell you, because I mean, at some point, INEC had to shift the collation of results in that state now. That's Abia State by 24 hours. I still have Libros Oshoma and Dayo Akintobi here with me. Libros, you look at what played out in the southeast of the country. This is one region that many people had expected, especially after the presidential election, with the way Peter Obi swept the southeast. I mean, many people had expected it was going to be a clean sweep for the Labour Party in the governorship election, but it didn't play out that way.
Yeah, you see, if you look at Enugu State, for example, all the three major candidates from PDP, Labour, and APGA were all from a Bano family, political family. You know, the three of them served in the government of Chimaroke Nnamani. One was nominated as a minister, Frank Wike Jr., and the rest were in the government. And so it's almost as if, you know, it's a battle on familiar terrain. They were also, like I said earlier on, no unanimous agreement between, you know, the obedient members of the obedient group who you know, consistently had maintained that they are not members of Labour, you know, on the candidate in Enugu. So some had said, look, Frank Wike Jr. of the APGA. And then you also have the agitation from some members in some persons that the PDP candidate was from Ebonyi State, that an Ebonyi man could not come to contest and run election in Enugu, that his great-grandparents migrated from Ebonyi. You know, those allegations were there during the campaign. But that power of incumbency and that 2 weeks window also gave them an opportunity to also, you know, cover a lot of grounds. But one thing is very instructive that I have noticed among the southeastern voters. They are very Republican. They tell you Igboenweze, you know, so they don't have one leader who will direct, you know, unlike the Southwest, where to go. A lot of them supported Obi for presidency because they also believe that it was the turn of the Southeast to produce, you know, the number one person.
But when it came to other elections, they went to their different bases.
After that, they went back to their different individuals. They don't like.
Could that also be the reason why, for instance, in Anambra State, where Peter Obi comes from? I mean, his party didn't do well in the state assembly elections.
Yeah, because
it was only able to win 4 seats. APGA still dominated.
Yes, because for the Anambra man, for example, an Anambra man can follow you, but will not want you to dictate to him. Yeah, for the presidential election, they gave it all to Peter Obi. But in the governorship election, they all went back to their individual camps and candidates. The only reason why even the speaker lost the election to the Labour candidate was because they had a zoning arrangement that, look, it's a turn-by-turn thing in his area. And so, but he insisted on going for a third term. And that's why the people rally around, you know, the young man in Labour, and he defeated him there. So, but if you look at the numbers generally, what this spoke volume to say, look, we still know our people, so we know who, you know, we want. And Peter Obi is not on the ballot. Peter Obi is not going to control some of these persons. They know them. They might just be riding on the name of Peter Obi. And then for Ebonyi, you know, the governor in Ebonyi has performed creditably well. You know, Umahi performed, built bridges, turned Ebonyi into, you know, what you call a small, you know,
one of the best performing governors
in the
Southeast country.
And that cost the Abia State governor a lot of problems, headache. So he also did not allow Labour to even take roots in Ebonyi. He didn't allow Labour to take roots in Ebonyi. And so consistently, he's giving them, you know, a tough battle. And so that's why you saw that Ebonyi was easy for PDP, APC,
For APC.
sorry. Then Abia.
We've talked about
Abia,
Yeah.
and it
We've
was
talked
also
about
it was
Abia.
for
But-
it was for Alesoti to lose, but finally he took it this time.
And of course, the PDP's performance over the years in Abia State didn't help matters at all. But tell me, Dayo, you look at the Southeast, the outcome of the election in the Southeast. What's your take?
Well, I agree with liberals. I think the fact that the Southeast believed it was their turn, that is long overdue. And it's not just the Southeast. Remember, Afenifere also
Yes.
stood on the grounds that it's
A
the
faction
turn.
of Afenifere, some would say.
Yes, a faction. Well, some
Yeah.
would say it's the Afenifere, some would say it's just a splinter group, who knows? Only they internally know what their leadership structure is all about. But yeah, a lot of people believe that in the interest of justice, fairness, and equity, that it is long overdue for the Southeast to have produced the president. And so the indigents of the Southeast themselves rallied around that cause in the presidential. And so it was almost homogeneously, maniacally focused in one direction for the presidential. But as Libro said, everybody now reverted to their comfort zone when it came to the governorship and the State House of Assembly. Personal, individual interests of where I am from, where the candidate is from, what the incumbent did when he was there, what the divisions are between the various parties. All those things came to bear in the smaller governorship and State House of Assembly, where the opinion was that there was a whole lot less to lose than at the presidential level. So I think that's what we saw playing out with those distorted numbers. Well, not distorted, but unbalanced numbers that we saw in the Southeast.
All right, let's take a look at the next zone now very quickly, the South-South zone. Libros, would you say it's a surprise that the PDP won Rivers State? For me, I don't think it's a surprise. But you look at Delta as well. So, Libros, give us your thoughts. Delta and Rivers.
Yeah, with what happened in, let me start from Delta. With what happened in the governorship, presidential election in Delta, where the Labour candidate, made a very strong presence, and that 1 week extension, we always talk about the 1 week extension. The PDP was demoralized.
And the Labour Party was a no-show in Delta. Look at the amount of votes it got there.
The PDP was demoralized. It was as if the Labour Party candidate, Pella, it was as if it was sponsored. Because you find out that for the governorship election, you would expect him to ride on the popularity of the obedient movement and the Labour candidate, presidential candidate. But it also seems as if the Labour presidential candidate was not interested in the politics of Delta, because he visited quite a number of other states, but I cannot remember him stopping over, in Delta states to even help in a campaigning in Delta, just the same way he did in Lagos. So it became a battle between the PDP and the APC. The Bori faction in PDP were not too happy with the COA faction. We also learned that they splitted into two. Some went to Labour, some went to APC. Omo Agege banked on the fact that he was going to get, the vote from the central. But what the result has shown is that Ogboru, who had consistently, been on the ballot and a candidate for that election since, I think, 2003.
Ogboru was candidate of APGA in this election.
So,
but he didn't make any show.
Yes, it was as if Ogboru, when Ogboru was on the ballot, he took more shine. And then another thing is that the two candidates of the PDP, the two major candidates, Sheriff Oboroweri and Omo Agege, are from the same Urobo. So it was like, the Urobos will have to share votes. And you saw it in Omo Agege's numbers. But for the Ishekiris and the Delta North, where Okowa came from, they rallied around Sheriff.
Obviously.
And so it was obvious that the numbers came from these places. And so that was how, that went. But for Cross River, the governor, if you notice, the anger of the people in Cross River had consistently been against Ayade as Ayade's performance. In Cross River State, he was the only senator in the APC that lost his senatorial zone
but
to the PDP.
But he played a smart card this time.
Yes, but for this time, because for the senatorial election, The APC got 2/3.
Yes.
And Ayade lost the election. And so it was also, very convenient for them to also work on the fact that they had, they have 2 senators in the kitty. And if they concentrated on just those 2 places, and then just a little numbers from Ayade's zone, definitely we're going to coast home. And so that was what, they did. And considering the fact, quickly, considering the fact also that you have a lot of House of Assembly members who also, had left for the Senate, like the former speaker or the current speaker is a senator-elect. The deputy speaker also is going to the House of Rep. So all of these people, also worked to ensure that, the state is retained. So it becomes easy for them.
Something I just needed to point out in Cross River is the fact that, look, the issue of zoning too played a very critical role in Cross River, because Basiotu, of course, from I think from Cross River South, and then Sandy Ono from Cross River Central, and the general feeling is that, look, after leaving the north, that the governorship should come to Cross River South.
Yes,
and of course, Cross River South is where Donald Duke
came from.
But Donald Duke was not supporting the APC candidate, and his people were not happy at all. And the bulk of the voters you find are in Cross River South.
South, yes, that's Calabar, Calabar Municipal, and the Modi Dupani areas and all of that.
Exactly. So
quickly, lastly, for time, let me quickly talk about the Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom, you also know the candidate of the YPP was, that's Basi Albert, was the one that actually stepped down for the outgoing governor, now Udom Emmanuel, with the belief that he would be handed over the ticket of the PDP come 2023. But that is not to be, and so he moved to YPP. So that's why you see the numbers of, an unknown party in Akwa Ibom, YPP coming second. And then the happy hour candidate of the PDP.
Now that's a problem. Maybe this man should not have said that at all, Dio. Maybe he shouldn't have said that. I mean, because this may eventually define his governorship. But Dio, tell me, are you surprised with the way things played out in Rivers?
Well, overall, let's talk about the South generally altogether as a voting bloc. Historically, since 1999, they've always skewed one way in particular. And what I'm seeing from looking at, taking a bird's eye view of the entire result now, is that that hegemony of one particular party in the South and the Southeast has been broken to pieces, because now you see for the first time, you start seeing different parties not just making a good showing, but actually getting elected in the South and the Southeast. You see APC getting elected. You see Labour Party also winning 1 seat. You see YPP doing well. So it seems as if now all of a sudden that lock that the PDP had in the South and the Southeast is finally broken for good. Now, looking at Rivers specifically, we know the role that Governor Wike played in that whole Rivers politics. Now, apart from him spearheading the G5 to move away from their presidential candidate, some of us actually advocated the principle that it might be a bit complicated to try and tell unsophisticated voters to choose one particular logo for presidential and different logos for the different other elections. So we were predicting that, well, voters, this is leading to voter confusion. And it's the way you told them to vote in the presidential that they'll vote down the line completely, all that same logo all the way. But obviously, Governor Wike knew what we didn't know, to the extent that he was confident that his people would not vote for the PDP candidate, but when it came to the governorship, they would vote for his own anointed candidate, and it played out that way. So maybe Wike is a political guru.
Probably, yes, it's true. You could accuse Wike of talking too much, but you also cannot accuse him. You can't accuse him of a non-performance, because he's obviously performed. Libros, we have to go on a short break, so I want you to be just brief on this. One issue I want you to speak to is in Rivers State, where the APC again lost. This is the 3rd time now. I mean, I want you to speak to what this means now, this defeat means for the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi. He got a candidate to run against to run against Wike in 2015. He lost. In 2019, he lost, and he's just lost again in 2023. I'm just wondering what that would mean for his political career.
Yeah, quickly, apart from the violence that a lot of people, including the APC, complained of in Rivers State, and all the allegations of what do you call it now, manipulations levied against Wike. In 2015, there was an allegation Amechi made. 2015, a day before the election, he was all over the place shouting, "Where are the results? Where are the results?" And he said something instructive, that in this place, in some of the riverine areas, we don't vote. It is the man with the results that wins the election. These are allegations he made. And then in that election, we saw, the violence, the protests that erupted after. The matter even went as far as the Supreme Court on issue of overvoting. Remember, card readers were used.
Yes.
And then the Supreme Court said, since card readers was not part of the Electoral Act, overvoting can only be reckoned with the voters' register. That laid that petition to rest. And also one key factor that consistently played against Amechi, apart from the fact that Wike took the money of the state, to develop the state. And people are asking, so what has Amechi been doing all of this while? The betrayal that some persons felt that Amechi betrayed one of theirs, which was Goodluck Jonathan. He was one of those arrowhead that led people away from PDP to APC. So that's also had consistently been one of the reasons some persons will never forgive him. And the fact that he left to Abuja and abandoned some of his political children. You remember Dr. Chidi Lloyds was one of those who followed him, who was almost killed in that Evans BP crisis. But eventually he went back to Wike, and so many other persons like that. So Amechi, before the election, you didn't see Amechi strongly out in the, in the rain, in the sun, campaigning for the candidate of Tonyeko. It was almost as if Tonyeko was abandoned, or even by Amechi, until after the presidential
that Amechi came
out. After the presidential election that Amechi came out and suddenly found his voice. And so it was too late in the day at that time for him to be talking to the people, unlike Wike, who was the spokesperson of his party. He was the governor, and he was everything. So if Amechi had, joined Tonyeko right from the beginning, I think this lost to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential primaries also cost him a lot of, maybe
he became sort of withdrawn after losing.
to withdraw, he became reticent, and so that affected the outcome. It was only Tonyeko in Rivers State. He's not seen as a grassroots politician, even though he had appealed, to a lot of the people. But his backer, another thing they used to campaign against him was that Tonyeko, the government of Tonyeko, would be a return of an Amechi. And yet Amechi wasn't there. And then I want to say this lastly, because he had thrown accusation at INEC that the chairman of INEC was appointed by the Bola Ahmed Tinubu faction of
and that he worked under Wike as minister.
That worked under Wike as minister. The question I would want to ask Amechi, for example, is Amechi was the DG, the Buhari campaign organization, in 2019. And Mahmoud Yakub was INEC chairman. When that election was conducted, didn't Amechi praise the same INEC that he's complaining against today? So he is a member of the party. He understands, all of these things. If you lost an election, it was obvious that he was not on ground. It was obvious that he didn't support his candidate. He was at a loss. He also didn't like the fact that maybe his party was going into alliance with his political enemy. So that also cost him maybe to withdraw. Okay. But by and large, I think he needs to change his approach and be more relevant and on ground in Rivers State politics if he will be able to even, beat a Wike next time.
Yes, and let's just hope this is not the end of his political relevance, so to speak, especially in Rivers State. We'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back to look at other zones. Don't go away now. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.